I'm Riley Keener. Today I'm teaching a lesson about Bloody Sunday and the march from Selma, Montgomery to Alabama, Montgomery that occurred during the Civil Rights Movement in 1965. Throughout my STEP experience, I've learned that students really thrive off of praise. So with that in mind, my mission statement is, our classroom is a place of peace where everyone is treated with respect and students can accelerate their knowledge. Our classroom is a place where everyone will feel important and has a desire to succeed in their education in order to receive the praise that they deserve. The main thing I want students to take away from this is how African Americans responded to the police brutality during the Civil Rights Movement, and then how they continue to stand behind Martin Luther King Jr.'s support for nonviolence. Based off of this, my essential question is, how did the violence from this march encourage followers from Martin Luther King Jr. to continue to fight with peace? And then my learning outcomes are, students will be able to predict what happened next based off of what they see in an image so that they can hypothesize the outcome of the event. And students will be able to recall their experience with literacy tests so that they can be exposed to a hardship that African Americans faced. To start this lesson, I have a picture displayed on the board. I kind of want to have a similar warm-up every class period just so students can get into routine of things. So with this one, I would have students write in their notebooks 3 observations that they make about the image for their warm-ups, and we do this for about 5 minutes, and after everyone has written something down, we'd kind of have just a small class discussion on it really quick and just go over what people observed. The march from Selma to Montgomery was motivated by the inability to vote for African Americans. The South made it nearly impossible for any individual of color to register or gain voting rights. And in order to do so, they'd have to go through serious hardships like voting taxes, literacy tests, or violent pressure. If we were in class right now, I would try to have my students attempt taking the literacy test. It was just like very frustrating, very impossible for anybody to take, and I think it'd be like a good way to put perspective in. So we would attempt that and then go over, just have a small discussion on it, how kids felt, why it was unfair, everything like that. Moving forward, so Lewis and Williams were the 2 leaders that led this first march from Selma to Montgomery. That day, Martin Luther King Jr. actually planned to go with them, but changed his mind because of death threats that he kept receiving, and he actually wanted to deliver his sermon that day in church. He wanted to postpone it to Monday, and a lot of people got frustrated with this, so Williams and Lewis decided to just go ahead with the march and lead about 600 to 650 African American men and women on the 54-mile stretch from Selma to Montgomery. Eventually, they met Alabama State Troopers, and that's what these images are here. Major John Cloud addressed the crowd, telling them that it would be detrimental if they continued their march, so Lewis asked to have a word with the major, and he continued to refuse, telling them that they needed to disperse and turn around and head back home. If I was in a classroom teaching this lesson, I would have my students turn to someone next to them and have them predict what happened next. After Major ordered the crowd to leave, Lewis turned to his people and they all knelt down and led each other in prayer. And then this is when just everything gets chaotic. So in one of these pictures, you can see them kneeling, and that's when they're praying. And then the other 2 pictures is when the tear gas started and when the violence started. The troops marched into the crowd and they start beating everyone in the way. Moments after that, tear gas is thrown at the people and everyone is trying to get away from the violence in the thick air. Many people were wounded mentally, emotionally, and physically after this march. This had just become yet another event in the Civil Rights Movement that ended with white oppression and violence. 2 days after Bloody Sunday, Martin Luther King led a second march on the same road. Around 2,000 people actually attended this one, and they faced the same state troopers who all ordered them to turn around and head back home. King did the same thing. He led everybody in prayer, and then they started singing, "We Shall Overcome," but then it ended peacefully, luckily, and everyone headed back, and but the fight continued after that. So finally, on March 21st and to March 25th, Dr. King and the other leaders actually accomplished their march and led thousands of people to Montgomery. Alabama to demand the right to vote. And luckily, by August 6, 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into a law, and that's what the picture on the left is. Unfortunately, Bloody Sunday became a devastating day in history due to the violence and destruction, but eventually the hard work for peace and perseverance gained African Americans their right to vote. For my accommodations, I tried to keep my PowerPoint short and to the point. Not a lot of words on them, just important dates and some facts about it. And then for my warm-up, like I said, I want it to be consistent and just kind of a daily thing that's similar so that students can just focus on what they should be doing. They know what to do when they come into the classroom. And then I just wanted to note that this is a very tough topic to talk about, but I think it's necessary. Also, if students are able to watch like police brutality and things that are going on in social media, then they can learn the history of it. So I kept my images mild but effective to get the point across. And that's it.